All right, now away from that story by my colleague Rita Tinina, let's now talk about indiscipline, children in discipline. Now, I'm sure for the better part of last week, as beginning Sunday, you saw a viral video that, made the headlines of a student. Let me call the pupil, okay, let me just call that person a pupil, and it's from a well-known international school. And the sort of language that the student had, well, words that I cannot even pronounce on air, words that even when we're being raised up during our days, you couldn't even pronounce them. So, which leads to our question this morning. How are kids raised up? I know generations are different. We are in the 21st generation. Majority of people right now call it the Y generation, or rather the microwave generation. But as we grow up, what is the missing link? Are there children who come from dysfunctional families? Or if they're coming from functional families, how are they raised up? Are they disciplined? That is a discussion that we're having right now in our studio with Onyina Boss, and who is also a counseling psychologist. And I'm sure, Mr. Boss, you've watched the two videos.
Yes.
And I believe also our viewers have watched the videos. And I lack words to describe, what I saw. I'm still in shock.
Yeah.
And I really don't know whether to start from the point of view of, does the kid come from a dysfunctional family, or where do parents go wrong when it comes to disciplining their children?
Thank you. To start with, it is a worrying outcome that we saw from that video. And it is disturbing. Anybody who is a parent or who is aspiring to be a parent would be worried with that kind of trend. You asked whether there's an indication of this child possibly coming from a dysfunctional family. That could be one factor. That is, we cannot assume. Because a functional family where both parents speak one language and they spend time with their children, we would not see such such unfortunate behavior. That is clearly an outcome of a behavior in this particular child. And for a child depends entirely on the parents. But it talks a lot about the parenting that this child went through and is still going through. What came out clearly is that, I'm sure this is not something that even the parent of this child would boast about.
And I'm even wondering, has the parent seen the video? And if the parent has seen the video, what sort of reaction is the parent having?
That is the question. That is why we say there's something amiss. But again, there's something that we call high support, high challenge, that helps the child to grow at equilibrium. But when there's high support, there's low challenge. So the child gets overwhelmed with the support. And many a times, as parents, we cover it up with love. That I want to love my child to the extent where I give what I was never given.
So what do you mean? What do you mean by over support? Because you're saying, like, when you support your child too much, the child becomes a child can overreact?
Yes. What I mean, there are those people those parents who treat their children so delicate to the extent where they cannot even correct. To start with, that was an outright obscene language. As a parent, how do you allow your child to have such obscene language in the public domain? Not even in the private domain. So it tells clearly that even in the house, probably she's doing more worse things. So where is the parent here? At this particular time when the child can come out and speak such obscene language in the public domain, the question is, where is the parent?
So when you talk about disciplining a child, then it begs the question, at what stage should you start disciplining your child? Is it from 5 months? Is it from 1 year? Is it from 7 years? At what stage do you start, instilling discipline in your child?
Actually, as a professional, I would say right from the time the child is still in the womb. Because how you behave, the child will get. You can agree with me that as a mother, when you are excited, the child is also really kicking. When you are low, the child is also very quiet. So right from as long as life has existed, that is the right time. When the child comes out, do we spend more time with the children? What is happening is that in the current scenario, we have absent parents. So we leave children with we call them house managers. Yes. And how much do we understand the character of this house manager? If this house manager had a lot of gaps while she was growing, what is she likely to pass to this young man? These gaps. And again, during the time this house manager is busy managing the house, doing the cleaning and the rest, where is the child? The child will end up spending most of the time in the social media, on the television. And you see, well, the child is born with fully developed brain. But you see now these brain cells are empty. The things they encounter in the environment is what sticks into them. So if the child is encountering these tough languages of like the ones we had, yes, these are the things that are sticking in their mind. And they also want to practice. And they also want to exercise.
But Mr. Boss, when you talk about disciplining a child, because you're talking about indiscipline.
Yes.
Child indiscipline.
Yeah.
So when you say that disciplining a child begins from immediately when it begins when the child is in your womb.
Yes.
But once you give birth to this child,
yes,
how should you discipline the child? Because most of us know discipline when you're growing up is chukua fimbo chapa mtoto. By the time you know the mistake you've done, you've received several canes.
Yes, I agree. Even me, I received quite a number of strokes. Probably that was, and is still one of the aspects. But it comes to a point where now, at the point where something is not right, express it non-verbally as you also verbalize. A child, even especially at tender age, they depend on especially the mother entirely. And they would not be happy if the mother is disappointed. But many a times, what do? The child has done something that is wrong, but we still go ahead and we giggle about it. The child, we know that there's nothing wrong with this. So the discipline comes when you express disappointment. When when a child, let's say, mentions something and you are not happy about it, non-verbally communicate and then also verbally communicate. And then there are also other ways, that you can you can, like those privileges that you give the child, withdraw them. The child will know then this thing is not supposed to be repeated. But you see, by giggling about it, that is a way of encouraging it.
Yeah, because I know that some parents, when their child does a mistake, some of them tend to, want to boast about it. And we've seen several videos like on social media, YouTube, like probably a child opening the fridge, breaking all the trays of eggs, or a child, opening the fridge, pouring all the milk. And there's some parents who find pride in that. They'll just, take a video, post it, and they're like, look at what my child did. And to me, that should be in discipline.
It is. And you see, that is what we say, too much support. You see, you over-pamper until when it is not necessary. Sorry. You over-pamper until when it is not necessary. Because like for that instance, when will the child know that this is not the right thing? And then now when this child has grown to be a teenage is when you start struggling with this child. This is something that you allowed it to stick into this child right from tender age. Once you implanted this and the child has grown with it, it becomes very difficult. That is why they say even for a tree, which is just a mere plant, you start straightening it when it is still tender. How about now a human being? Another thing that I want to tell the parents, as you raise the child, ask yourself, what kind of a person would you want to take after you tomorrow if you are not there? Or tomorrow if you are now aged? You are aged enough that he is the one who is supposed to support you. What kind of a person would you want to see in him or her? And I think that is a question that the parent of that child should be able to ask herself.
So what you're telling us is, Mr. Bose, even before you discipline a child, you need to let the child know, this is the mistake you've done.
Exactly.
And this is why I'm beating you, or this is why we need to come to the table and reason together.
Yes.
But there's a concern, as much as you're also, proposing for that of let's have a dialogue about this. Is that the best way to discipline your child? Let's come and reason together.
Okay, fine. Reasoning is good enough, but at what stage? And then again, as a parent, you need to speak the language of a child when the child is still a child. Because again, you cannot speak an adult language to a child. That also becomes a problem. The child may never understand the language, and the child may not go a different direction. Like I've seen cases where, the parent come and start shouting and screaming and still banging the table. What does the child do? The child coils and gets scared. So the child does not understand that whatever was done is what is being corrected. Again, another way of correcting this, make it very clear that you don't hate the child. But you don't encourage the behavior. This unwanted behavior is what you are against. So once you make that clear, that is why I say high support, high challenge. Yes, when you are disappointed, express it clearly and explain why you are disappointed.
All right.
It is because of this undesirable behavior.
All right.
Yes.
All right. And lastly, as we bring this conversation to an end, Mr. Bose,
Yes.
there is, and let me just give an example from the video that has gone viral. You know, how do you discipline a child to know how to relate with other people around them? Because in that video, you can see how, you know, that child has actually belittled people who stay in the slums.
Yeah, that is why I say too much support. Like, we go out there as parents, we work so hard, we leave very early in the morning and we come back at night. Then when we come, now we over-pamper. We give too much. At what point do you make it clear that even as I support you, these are mine as a parent, they are not yours? Because the child was talking like the wealth that they have is actually ours, which was very wrong.
Yeah,
And
because the way he starts from the video, he
Yes.
says, like, I'm talking from my penthouse.
Yes.
Penthouse.
Yeah. And you see going ahead and telling the other one, you see the parent is actually taking a loan to pay for the slum house and those kind of stuff. You know, belittling. A child should know that all this that I'm enjoying are for, and a good parent, our focus should be, how do we bring out the potential of a child? Because such children, there's a likelihood that even in the absence of the parents, they are likely to mess up with those very, very things that the parents worked hard for. So the question is, what kind of a child would we want to raise that is going to take after us tomorrow?
Okay, what kind of a child do you want to raise so that can take after us tomorrow?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. Counseling psychologist, that is Onyina Ben from the Border Psychological Counseling Services.